Okay, so this part we're going to talk more about transfers, different kinds of transfers, and review a little bit what we've already been doing. Levels of assist. This is something you have to get down. There'll be questions on this on the final exam. This is something you'll be dealing with for the rest of your OT careers. Believe me, levels of assist, all different kinds of levels of assist. It's very important. This is kind of how we think, communicate as occupational therapists. Okay, so supervision. What do you mean by supervision? What we're saying here with supervision is you're not touching the client. Let me kind of repeat that. With supervision, you're not physically touching the patient at all, but they are still unsafe. They require supervision. They're unsafe. They're slow. They're just starting to emerge and get their independence. So as a therapist, you're not touching, but you're very, very close to them. You're thinking fall. Where are they going to fall all the time? You're ready to grab them, but you're trying to let them do it by themselves. The biggest thing students kind of struggle with all this is you're just too far away. You're too unwilling to get into somebody's space, which is understandable. It's awkward, especially with people you don't know. But you need to kind of get over that, get into their space, stay close, because you have to keep them safe. That's your job as an OT. More so than anything, you are the safety police. You have to keep people safe. You don't want them to fall and have bad things happen to them. So supervision is not touching, but close watching. Minimal assist, slight boost. Think like 25%. When I say 25%, the patient is doing 75%, and you as the OT are doing 25% or less. You're touching, you're grabbing that gait belt. A lot of cases, it's just one hand on the gait belt in the middle of their back, and you're giving them that slight boost to get up. Moderate assist, this is when you're really starting to work as a therapist. You're doing as much as half of it. They're doing half, you're doing half. We're saying for purposes of the exam and stuff, that at this point you want to be two hands in front of them, right on their hips, hanging onto that gait belt. We'll practice this in the lab. Really varies on the person in real life. Sometimes, even if it's a moderate assist, you may not need two hands. I mean, there's a difference between a 100-pound little old lady and a 300-pound man. So in the real world, it really varies a lot. But for purposes of testing, keeping it straight and organized, so you don't go crazy trying to know what is what. When you get to moderate assist and higher, think two hands on hips and right in front of the person, right in their face. And then max assist, you're doing most of the work, as much as 75% of the work. The patient is only doing like 25%. So you're really working hard, giving them a good boost. Dependent, you're pretty much doing all of it. Patient is doing very little. At this point, again, depending on the size of the person, you're probably going to need help. You're probably going to need a mechanical lift or a Hoyer lift, 2 people to get this person up. Again, we talked about this earlier, but we're always thinking facilitating independence with the client. We don't want them to be dependent. We want them to be independent. So we want them working as hard as they possibly can while keeping them safe. In this picture, patient is working. He's using his hands. He's going nose over toes. The therapist is just guiding. He's probably like a minimal assist. He's got one hand on his gait belt in the back. The patient is doing most of the work. In this picture, the therapist, or this person, is doing all of the work. Plus, he's hanging onto her arms, not the hips, which is bad news. She's just kind of along for the ride. She's not really doing anything. She's too passive. So we want the patient to be active, not passive. Steps for transfer. The stand pivot, we've done this before. The person is standing all the way up, taking a step, and then sitting. And then the squat pivot. This is a new one. This is the more challenging one you'll be doing in clinics, hospitals. Mod to max, dependent kind of transfer. He's really working 2 hands in front of the hips, right close to the patient. In this technique, he has one leg in between the patient's legs. You can have another technique where you have both your legs on the outside. I like this technique. For the therapist, his right leg is kind of towards where you're going. Patient is always transferring off of their strong leg. And repeat that. You always want the patient to transfer off of their strong leg. This is what you're going to be tested on in the final exam questions and the practicum as well. You have to make sure that they're always transferring off of their strong leg. What do I mean by that? In this picture, this man's left leg. This is his left leg. He's transferring off his left leg. He's pivoting off the left leg. So the strong leg is closest to where he's going. He pivots off that left leg and he does the squat and he sits. So if he was going to go back into the wheelchair, you'd have to move the wheelchair to the other side. Because again, this is his strong leg. You want him to pivot off his strong leg. If he went back into the wheelchair from this position, you'd be pivoting off of his weak leg, which is his right leg. Also, it's a squat, a crouch. You're not standing the person up. This isn't a stand pivot. This is a squat pivot. The person is unable to stand fully up. They're just getting up as much as they can, doing as much as they can, and you're just kind of popping them up and zipping them over to the mat. Sliding board transfers. This is a sliding board right here. She's going from the chair to the bed with the sliding board. These are tricky. We'll do some of these in the lab. These won't be on the practicum. There may be some questions on the final. You may be dealing with these when you go out in clinicals. These can be tricky. There's really no smooth, perfect way for doing this. Generally speaking, she's independent with this. She's kind of here. She's going back into the chair. So she gets it underneath her left thigh there, under her butt there. And then she starts to slide, hanging on. So she gets it under there, and she forms like a bridge between the bed and the chair, and she starts sliding and scooting with the two hands to get into the chair. Position the chair as close to the mat as you can. Transfer off the strong side again, lock everything, position legs. In this case, usually you're locking their legs between your legs. Sometimes it's a double amputee, they may not have legs. So they're getting the board underneath one cheek, and they start sliding, scooting and sliding and scooting and sliding. Going slow is a key part of this. You as a therapist have to really hang on to them because they're going to be tipsy, especially if they have their bilateral amputee. This is something we have to kind of do to get a sense of what we're talking about. Hard to talk about it verbally or even with pictures. Okay.